Bien. Une fois de plus, je demanderai au photographe d'abord de bien vouloir s'asseoir, ce qui signifie vous aussi, monsieur devant. Merci. Once again, I would ask the photographers to please sit down so that we can start the press conference. Also, please sit down. Oi! Thank you. And also, during the press conference, as the press conference is broadcast live on television, please do not use your flashes. Your work interferes with that of the camera crews. Also, before I introduce the people here at this panel, I would like to remind you that there are two ladies in gray in the aisles. They have microphones. When you want to ask a question, please raise your hands and allow for time for the microphones to reach you. Also, when you get the microphone and want to ask your question, please stand up and so that the camera could spot you and introduce yourselves. Just a second. And I would like immediately to introduce the people who are here at this panel, who are in various capacities connected with the film that you saw this morning. Mr. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. On the very, very far left, a man we had already seen in Cannes in Jim Jarmusch's Strangers in Paradise. He was also a pain in the neck in Barry Levinson's Good Morning Vietnam. He plays the younger brother, Mr. Richard Edson. Sitting next to him, a lady we had also seen in She's Gotta Have It. She plays Mookie's sister in the film you saw this morning. She's also Mr. Spike Lee's real-life sister, Miss Joie Lee. We don't have enough time nor enough superlatives to introduce the couple that sits next to me. Mr. Ossie Davis was probably the man who revived, quote-unquote, black cinema with Cotton Comes to Harlem. Miss Ruby Dee was one of the luminaries of A Raisin in the Sun, sorry. Miss Ruby Dee and Mr. Ossie Davis. And last but certainly not least, the director, Mr. Spike Lee. And there was a question over there, the lady in polka dot. Just a second, get the mic.
Anne-Marie Baron, Radio Communauté Cinéma 89. Il me semble évident que les mots clés qui résument votre film sont love and hate, amour et haine, et je vous suis très reconnaissante d'avoir montré la complexité du mélange d'amour et de haine dans ce quartier de Brooklyn, qui est un abrégé symbolique du melting pot américain. Mais j'aimerais vous poser une question sur le personnage de Sal, parce que c'est sûr que c'est un homme de bonne volonté, mais il me semble quand même qu'il est assez complexe. Est-ce que vous ne l'accusez pas d'un certain paternalisme?
Yes, Sal was a racist too. And I mean, when he has that conversation, with Pino, he says, you know, I've been good to these people. These people grew up on my pizza. And anytime being a black person, you hear the term these people, it's another word for black or nigger or something like that. I think it's also important that his son Pino, the racist, you have to think about where did he get that racism from? That did not just come out of the thin air. A lot of that stuff he got from his father. He got that from his home. He got that from Sal. So also when the conflict starts, all of a sudden, I'm gonna kick your nigger ass. Go back to Africa. We ain't in the jungle. I mean, all this stuff was beneath the surface, and it took the hottest day of the summer and this conflict to bring it out. But before I answer another question, I'd just like to say it's a coincidence today is Malcolm X's birthday. He would have been 64. And also mentioned Ozzie Davis gave Malcolm's eulogy at his funeral. Next question.
Madame?
Maya Rottenbühler, Dialogue. Here, monsieur. Okay. I would like to pose the question, Miss Lee. Towards the end of your film, your brother is using words of Malcolm X. I don't remember the whole quotation, but it's in the sense that violence in self-defense, it's not considering to be a violence. To me, it seems to me that everybody in the movie have really a reason for self-defense in this case. That means to the violence. If it's not a vicious circle, which is kind of surrounding us in the movie, if it's your feeling as well, that it's kind of vicious circle, this violence, self-defense, and the words of Malcolm X.
I'm not sure what the question is, but I haven't seen the film, so I can't comment.
You haven't seen the film?
No.
And you are not aware. You are not aware of the words towards the end of the film. Could you give us?
The actors, they haven't seen the movie yet. The ones that are here will see it tonight, and the ones in the States will see it June 20th. But they weren't allowed to see the movie yet.
I have the feeling that the question was, you're using the Malcolm X quote at the end of the film, and what Malcolm X says, doesn't that create some sort of a vicious circle? Self-defense plays on both sides of the fence.
No, I don't think it's a vicious circle. I think that if you don't use self-defense, you'll be annihilated. And we wanted to end the movie with two quotes from Malcolm and Martin. Those quotes weren't scripted. At the end of the movie, during post-production, the ending still wasn't right. We needed something that would dot the I, to make the film come complete circle, that would make it satisfying. And we came up with the ideal of using the two quotes to complete the thread that had been woven throughout the whole film of Malcolm and Martin. I think it would have been a disservice to either one to only use one quote. We use both. I think that in certain times, both philosophies and approaches can be appropriate. But in this day and age, in the year of our Lord, 1989, I'm leaning more towards the philosophies of Malcolm X, and that's why we chose that quote to end the movie with than with the Dr. Martin Luther King quote. I mean, his stuff, nonviolence, all that stuff, had its time, and I think there's still times where it's appropriate. But when you're being beat upside the head with a brick, I don't think that young black America is just gonna turn the cheek and say, "Thank you, Jesus, for hitting me upside the head with this brick."
Mr. Davis, do you have the feeling that the fight that you had to wage in 1962 with Cotton Comes to Harlem is the same as that Mr. Lee has to fight today, or has it changed radically?
No, the fight that I had to wage in 1969 with Cotton Comes to Harlem was basically a fight to get into the game as the game is played, not to challenge the basic assumptions of Hollywood at all, but merely to prove that one of us could do exactly what was being done in Hollywood and appeal to our own audience. There is a difference today. I think what Spike Lee represents is a further development of the struggle. Spike is himself independently capable of producing top-flight films, whether Hollywood says yes or no, and that is his value. I tried to get inside. Spike's strategy would be to stand outside and do work that is so brilliant or work that is so important that Hollywood would have to reach out and deal with him. It would have to deal with Spike Lee on Spike Lee's own terms. It dealt with me on Hollywood's terms, and that's the difference.
Thank you. Monsieur?
François Cohen-dit Le Progrès. Oui, j'ai une question pour Spike. Une question pour Spike Lee, dont j'ai trouvé le film formidable par le sujet et le traitement. Il m'a semblé également très impartial. Je voudrais savoir comment il a été perçu par les communautés impliquées, dans la mesure où il a été montré à un certain nombre de personnes. Les différentes communautés impliquées dans
le film n'est pas sorti aux États-Unis encore.
Il n'y a pas eu de projection pour...
C'est possible.
The movie hasn't opened yet. It will open in the States on June 30th, and I think it will open here in Europe before then. But I think that was very partial to all the characters in the film. I think that what you're really talking about is that this film was told from the point of view of a black person, and I am black, and Alan Parker told the story of the civil rights movement from the point of view of a white director. Steven Spielberg told The Color Purple from the view of a white director, and so therefore I should not be criticized for telling my films through the point of view of a black director. That's what I am. So that's it.
Question là-bas.
Can you explain what do you think about black music, about Public Enemy and the rap?
Public Enemy and rap? We knew that we would need a song in this film that would be played throughout by the character Raider Rahim. We knew that it had to be an anthem-like song, it had to be an angry song, and it had to be a militant rap song. And only group that I knew of that could perform that song would be Public Enemy. I approached them to do it. They wanted to do it, and fight the powers in the movie 15 times.
Is that a directorial decision not to have the song translated, subtitled, I mean, at the beginning?
Yeah, we were thinking about that, going back and forth, and we decided not to subtitle it. But the film's release, we might think again, and then we might subtitle it, especially at the beginning when the movie opens in the opening credit sequence. But we thought that might detract from the credits. So it's something that we really have to still think about before the film is released overseas, because the lyrics are very important, and the audience that does not understand English will be missing something very important if they don't get what is being said and the content of the lyrics of Fight the Power.
Question là-bas. Monsieur?
Sylvain Garel, Écologie, Cinéma 89. Monsieur Spike Lee, pour revenir à Malcolm X, vous avez dit tout à l'heure que la citation avait été faite en post-production. Est-ce que vous pensez que si ça avait été écrit dans le scénario, vous auriez eu des problèmes avec les producteurs? Et d'autre part, est-ce que vous pensez que, comme le pensait Malcolm X, que d'être noir aux États-Unis, c'est d'être en situation de légitime défense?
I really don't know what Universal would have said if we would have had those two quotes at the end of the movie. I think they still would have made the film. And as far as the other question, I think that I would have to agree with your statement. I don't know if Malcolm X, if he ever said that, but I think that we are oppressed people, and you have to, defend yourself.
Question?
Yes, Bruce Kirkland from the Toronto Sun. A question for Mr. Lee. I'm curious from a moral point of view, within the context of the film, which of the characters you most strongly believe actually did the right thing?
I think a lot of the characters do. I think the mayor did the right thing by trying to save Sal's neck and his sons, trying to save the pizzeria from being burnt down. I know the cops did the wrong thing, that's for sure. And what's sad is that they continue to do the wrong thing and nothing ever happens. For me, that's what the movie's about. You know, about human life and how in America, black life has become devalued, where it's not, you don't have the same premium, if you might say. If a black person is killed, it really doesn't matter. It's just another case of niggers killing niggers, and it might make a small space, a couple sentences on page 38 of the daily newspaper.
Monsieur.
Trevor Johnston, The List, Scotland. I'd like to ask Mr. Lee, I'm afraid I don't remember the character's name, but the guy with the stutter who carries the photos. Smiley, sorry. The guy who carries around the photos of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Why did you decide to bring the figures of those two major figures into the film through a character who might be seen to have some kind of disability, or that might be in some way, you know, breaking a sacred cow or something?
2 or 3 years ago, I saw that photo for the first time, and it just stuck in my mind. That is the only known photograph together, or both of them, and the only time they're known I've ever met. And I just stored it away, knowing that one day I would be able to use that in a movie. The character of Smiley, I had recently seen Fences, which is a Pulitzer-winning play written by August Wilson, and there was a character in it called Gabriel, and he was kind of like retarded, and I liked that character a lot. Smiley was not written in the script at all. Roger Smith, who plays Smiley, was calling me every day trying to get a part in the movie. And finally, he wore me down. I was in Los Angeles, and he tracked me down at the hotel, and he knocked on the door, and he was there, and I said, okay. If we could come with a character that will fit into this film, and it won't seem like it was just stuck on, then you could be in the movie. And together we came up with this character of Smiley.
Question here.
Yes, Gail Garnett, Village Voice, New York. Mr. Lee, I am a Canadian who's been living in New York for the last while, and for me, your film not only most accurately, but perhaps is the only accurate representation of what I perceive to be the interracial and multiracial reality of New York at this time. And it's been my sense that it's all going to come down this summer, that this summer is going to be a mess. And your film seemed, when I say a mess, I mean a lot of people are going to get hurt. Your film seemed to be anticipating that and speaking to that. I'd like to know your impression of what this summer in New York is going to be, and if I'm accurate in what I thought I saw.
I see Mr. Pollack getting fidgety back there.
Because of your film, by the way. Your film speaks to the reality. It's not causing it.
Yes, I mean, anything that happens this summer will not happen because of this movie. I mean, we anticipated this. We wanted the film to come out this summer. Last summer was the hottest summer in New York City in a long time, and nothing really happened. I think that what makes this summer important is that in November, there's going to be an election for the mayor of New York City. And Mayor Ed Koch has been the mayor for the last 8 years. And this is going to be a very bitter race. The primary is in September. And what the mayor has accomplished in the last 8 years is divided the city down the line into black and white. New York City is very polarized, and that's the way this election is going to be run too. It'll probably be hot again this summer, and if anything happens this summer, it won't be because of this film, it'll be because cops killed somebody else for no reason. But it won't be because of do the right thing.
But you have been quoted in the American press as having said that you hope certainly that this film, even single-handedly if it has to, will defeat Ed Koch. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna defeat Ed Koch, but I think that it's gonna
help
put a lot of light on his last 8 years in office, and it will have some influence. I mean, but people are still gonna have to get out and register to vote.
Madame?
Oui, Viviane Nortier, La Dépêche du Midi. C'est une question pour Monsieur Spike Lee. En général, les films militants sont des films manichéens. Vous n'êtes pas toujours très tendre envers les Noirs. En particulier, il m'a semblé voir une critique de l'attitude un peu passive des Noirs. Quand vous faites dire aux trois personnages qui sont assis, il y en a un qui dit « Oui, les Noirs vous dites toujours, je vais faire quelque chose » et vous restez toujours assis au coin de la rue. Alors, est-ce qu'il y a bien cette critique?
I would agree with that. That's why I don't think that anybody can accuse me of this film being racist, because I'm harder on black people than anybody else in this film. And I would agree. I think that we shouldn't be dumping on Koreans just because they own every fruit and vegetable stand in New York City within the space of 2 years. For too long, we've used alibi white man this, white man that as an excuse. And sooner or later, if we are to do anything as a people, we have to do it for ourselves and not rely on anybody else.
Monsieur?
Jan Omdahl from Norway. I don't see too many black film workers around this festival, so I wonder if you could give some comments on the general situation for black film workers, and also if you have any idea why the black influence is so much bigger in the music industry than in the movie industry.
Well, the reason for that last question is that it doesn't cost a lot to make a record, but it costs millions and millions of dollars to do movies. I mean, I'm not the only black filmmaker out there. You have Robert Townsend, Keenan Wayans, Eddie Murphy is directing a movie now. In this festival, we have Charles Lane's very fine film, Sidewalk Story. So there are a lot of us working, but I think because of these people I've mentioned, that 5-10 years from now, you're gonna see a whole wave of young black talented filmmakers making films, and they were inspired by the films they're seeing now. So the big rush is gonna be 5 and 10 years down the line.
Question here. Madame?
Je voudrais savoir pourquoi vous n'avez pas fini votre film sur la phrase de Martin Luther King plutôt que sur celle de Malcolm X. Je pense que votre film aurait gagné, ça aurait vraiment élevé le débat.
Vous trouvez que la phrase de Malcolm X le rabaisse?
Pardon?
Vous trouvez que la phrase de Malcolm X rabaisse le débat?
Je pense que celle de Martin Luther King est plus belle, oui.
Well, that's your opinion, you know? I think that you have to look at them together. I mean, we didn't end it with only Malcolm. The whole film, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King are intertwined. And so you must look at the ending as a pair. Here's one position, here's another position.
Question here.
Yeah, this is a question for everyone on the panel. In many ways, this film takes a very despairing view of even the possibility of an amicable relationship between the races. And I was wondering if working on a film with that subtext affected the working conditions and the relationships among an interracial cast.
Everybody got along great on this film. And I think there's hope at the end. I think there's a shaky truce between Mookie and Sal at the end of the movie. You know, it's very symbolic with Mookie representing black America and Sal representing white America. But on the other hand, I think it would have been a lie and very dishonest to have a kind of like Steven Spielberg ending where we all holding hands and singing "We Are the World." That is not truthful at this time.
But on the other hand, I must interject this in response to what you've just said. The making of the film itself was a beautiful example of people's working together from one of the best-run ships that I've experienced in terms. Hollywood is very racist, as is Broadway. Technicians are barred from the union. It's an extremely exclusive setup, this business of making films in the States for the most part, in terms of the technical unions. And this film, Do the Right Thing, was a marvelous example of the way one envisions it should be. There were all races, women, handicapped. I mean, it was an amalgam of people, all kinds of people, and it was the most beautifully run ship that I've ever been on.
May I add something? The peace and harmony that prevailed on the set was, to me, unique, and I've been in the business for a long time. But it's also eloquent of the possibilities of race relations in New York City. If we could establish peace in the streets of Brooklyn in the making of the film, then it indicates that we can establish peace in a broader sense. The possibilities of violence in New York this summer, of course, are always there, but a lot will depend upon the nature of the election campaign. If we, in the black community, for example, have as a candidate a man who inspires, who reassures, who gives us hope, and enables us to understand that if we quell our violence, there's a larger objective we can achieve through him, that will affect greatly what happens in all the communities. So we can't say in advance what is going to happen. But I suspect that in New York this summer, though there will be turmoil and a lot of upsetment, I do not expect the city to go up in flames at all.
Mr. Edson?
I feel we were working together from the beginning of the project to the end of the project. And I didn't experience any problems at all. And I looked forward to going to work every day. And it was a pleasure to work on this movie.
How is the shooting perceived within the community itself? All of you, yeah. Go ahead.
Which community?
What?
Bed-Stuy.
Brooklyn? Bed-Stuy?
Oh, Bed-Stuy. I think the people were they were very cooperative, and they were thrilled to have a movie being shot in their backyards.
I think it was more than being thrilled. I think that the community had a sense of participating in something important that gave it its own sense of importance. It was a community having invited the attention of the world and therefore structuring itself so that the behavior of the community itself might look good to the outside. It's a prime example of what we need to do to regenerate the communities that we're talking about. Give the people inside something to be proud of, to participate in, to regenerate or generate some sense of hope in these communities. And this was true of the Bedford-Stuyvesant area where the film was made, which is one of those, quote, pathologically deprived communities. They were not pathologically deprived while we were there. They were proud. They stopped us. They wanted to be involved. They wanted to meet Spike. It was a marvelous thing to have happened. I mean, to save New York, all we really need is for a film company to go to every block and begin to make films.
Sir?
John Harkness, Now Magazine, Toronto. Mr. Lee, I have one question, which is, why did you feel it necessary to have Mookie precipitate the final riot at the end?
It would have been too easy for the audience for a character like Bugging Out to do that, because that was expected. Also with a lessened effect, because up to that point, I think for a lot of the white audience that this is one character in the film that they can identify with. I mean, they're not gonna like Bugging Out. He's a troublemaker. They're not gonna like Raider Rahim. I mean, everybody has these, you know, preconceived notions of these black youths, these angry, insane, murderous, rapist, mugging black youths that terrorize inner city America, walking around these giant radios with their rap music blasting. It would have been too easy to have somebody like that throw the garbage can through the window. So it's a big surprise. And so we get you because it's like, throughout the beginning of the movie, Mookie is a nice young black character. The one that you wouldn't mind having come over your house while having to lock up your silverware and your color TV. And then in the last moment, he's the one that throws the garbage can through the window.
Question over there.
Bernard Boulade, Revue Voir, Montréal, Québec. J'aurais une question à Spike Lee. Votre film est très, très troublant et il parle surtout du thème des ghettos à New York. Je voudrais savoir si vous croyez que c'est possible de vivre de façon vraiment intégrée, que toutes les communautés puissent être intégrées à New York, dans différents quartiers, parce que votre film pose la question, il n'y répond pas à la fin. Et c'est vrai que c'est très inquiétant, c'est très troublant. Enfin, moi, je trouve que votre film pose un constat très négatif, enfin très pessimiste peut-être sur l'avenir. Et je ne sais pas, je voudrais que vous me répondiez à cette question. Est-ce que vous croyez vraiment que l'interracialité peut se vivre à New York? Est-ce que c'est possible? Est-ce que vous y croyez à ça? On dirait que c'est presque un rêve, ou du moins un idéal.
Well, I don't think that we should just really hone in on New York City. This film is not about just New York City. This film is about the world. Racism is not, I mean, I think it'd be a mistake if we sit here in the south of France and look at this film, and as most of you being European journalists, saying that racism is something that just pertains to America, and there's no racism here in France, that Algerians and Africans are treated like everybody else, which we know is not the truth, that Indians and Pakistanis and West Indians in England are treated like everybody else, which we know is not the truth. So don't just stick this on America. It's not just about Bedford-Stuyvesant, it's not just about Brooklyn, it's not just about New York or America, it's about the world. Racism is all over the world. I don't think it's a very pessimistic film. I think that at the end, there is hope. I mean, I believe that. Another thing is that you cannot come to any one of my, I wouldn't go to any movie expecting to have an answer for AIDS, for cancer, for racism. What makes you think that filmmakers are gods or Jesus Christ? What makes you think that I'm a savior and I'm going to have an answer for racism, something that's been plaguing us since man has been around? I don't have the answer. I think the problem, I mean, what we wanted to do, my agenda, what I feel what I have to do as a filmmaker is present problems so that the discussion can start, because you have people in America who still say that racism ended when Lyndon B. Johnson signed these civil rights acts and black people allowed to vote, and because Michael Jackson is #1 rock star along with Prince, and Eddie Murphy is the biggest box office draw in the world, and Bill Cosby is the #1 TV star along with Oprah Winfrey, and Mike Tyson is the world heavyweight champion, and Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player in the world. The black people arrived and everything is all right. But it's not. The black underclass in America now is larger than it's ever been. So you can't be lulled to sleep just because Eddie Murphy is huge and Arsenio Hall has a great show. That we're living in a world where everything is right and is righteous and humane.
Monsieur?
Monsieur Spike Lee, je crois aussi que votre film chante l'espoir, mais est-ce que vous n'avez pas l'impression d'avoir complètement gommé un problème qui est celui de la drogue?
That's a good question, and I was hoping somebody would say that. This film is not about drugs. This film takes place within a 24-hour day period on the hottest day of the summer in New York City. The film is about people and racism. Now, I think that's a great point what Ossie Davis talked about Bedford-Stuyvesant being one of these quote-unquote pathological neighborhoods of deranged black people. Because when you say Bedford-Stuyvesant, when you say Harlem, Chicago, South Side, Watts, automatically white America thinks of rapists, murderers, drug addicts, killers, all that stuff. Drugs is in every level of society today in America. How many of you journalists would go saw Working Girls or Rain Man and question where are the drugs? Nobody. But the minute that we have a black film that takes place in the ghetto, people want to know where the drugs are. Because automatically, they think that when you have a film about black people, you're going to have drugs, you're going to have rapists, you have people being killed, violence, because that's the way you think of black people. I mean, let's be honest. Those are the images that you've been led to believe that we are as a people.
Madame?
That was actually going to be my question, that it seems a glaring omission not to have the drugs. And you made this movie in Washington, D.C., in that neighborhood. I don't see how you could have left them out.
But you have to realize, once again, that this film is not about drugs. Drugs is such a big issue that you have to do an entire film about drugs. To have a subplot of drugs would be a disservice to the film. This film, racism is big enough for one film in itself. In fact, we could have 50 more films about racism. You talk about racism in the music industry, racism in sports, in corporate America. So let's just talk about the movie that you saw, not about what the movie wasn't about.
One, that this was your idea, what you just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
The film on drugs, do you plan ever to make it?
Yes.
Okay. The gentleman of Monsieur là-bas, Mr. Ebert. No, my question was already asked. Okay. Monsieur.
I wanted to ask why Mookie picks up the money which he first wanted to give back to Sal, the $200, I think.
Mookie picks up the money. The reason why I threw back the money was a matter of pride. Then there's a stalemate. And this is something that I had various discussions with executives at Universal about. They thought that it would make Mookie more heroic, he would have higher morals if he left the money there on the sidewalk. I felt that that would be untrue. I think that no young black kid in New York City, not especially when he knew his job is gone, Sal's has been burnt down to the ground. At that point in the movie, Mookie has decided that he has to be a better person, that he has to be a better father for his kid. And there was $200 laying there on the sidewalk, and he scooped it up.
$200 is $200.
True.
Monsieur?
Patrick Alexandre, le Drapeau Rouge. Je suppose que si vous avez choisi un acteur connu comme John Savage pour un rôle aussi bref, c'est que vous vouliez aussi qu'il représente quelque chose de caractéristique. Vous pouvez parler de ce rôle?
Yes, John Savage really, his part had to do about gentrification. Gentrification is happening all over the United States. During the late 60s, early 70s, you had a phenomenon called white flight, where white people in droves left the inner city to move into the suburbs, to move away from crazy black folks, to move away from drugs, to move away from crime into the utopia of the suburbs. what they found out is that without black people following them, crime still followed them, drugs still followed them, and they got tired of commuting 2 hours into the city every day. So what you have going on all over the United States is a reclaiming of the inner cities, and it's really set up by the real estate companies, developers, where black people are being tricked, not all the time, but a lot of times they're being tricked into selling their homes for a price that is too low, and we're really being displaced. So systematically, the cities are being taken over once again, and black people being moved out to the suburbs, way, way out in the suburbs. So that's what the character John Savage plays. He's a young man, a white homesteader, who is tired of paying the exorbitant rents in Manhattan, and he wants to own a home, and only affordable homes that are good are in black neighborhoods now, neighborhoods which, like I live in Fort Greene. Brooklyn has some of the best brownstones in New York City, and when my parents bought our home, it was 1969, it was a predominantly black neighborhood. Then we bought a house for like $75,000. Now, if you want to buy a brownstone in Fort Greene, it costs $400,000. And the neighborhood now is half white. Young white professionals are buying all these homes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.